And the next dating story is about the one that got away. Um, Not everybody may have somebody who they feel like was a loss, and probably not everybody believes in the concept of the one that got away. Um, because some people may approach breakups with a positive attitude and feel that all of them may be good riddance. But I think for some girls who are lucky enough to meet one guy that really stood out from the rest and experienced a real unforgettable bond with them, it's hard for us to forget, and we may always have a spot in our heart for those people. And it's definitely a somber and tender subject with an element of grief. But I think this is what makes love and life so beautiful, is that not every love story has a happy ending. And sometimes the dearest one is not who we end up with at the end. So this one we'll give to Jasmine. Jasmine, who's been waiting the whole time. Take it away.
Yeah. So for about a decade, I'll be very honest, I struggled with this concept because I really deeply felt it. So the one that got away from me was my first love in high school. First love for each of us. And we were very alike in a lot of the same ways, but also of course, this is in hindsight, had difficulties communicating because, again, we were each other's first real love. Our families were really close. I was close to his family. We were raised very much the same. I'm Vietnamese, he's Vietnamese. So having that extra element of being close to your partner's family also made it very hard. What ended up happening was that I went away for college. We tried to make it work and didn't. So due to circumstances, we just couldn't stay together. Being that we already had problems communicating in the first place, being away, and then having to then also figure out how to handle how to have a long distance relationship for the first time. And then with me being away at college, having new experience that didn't include him. There's that, for me, there was that guilt that, because he stayed, he went to college back at home. So he stayed with his family. His immediate environment didn't change. So whenever he came up, hung out with my friends, it was always a disconnect. We never went back into sync. We broke up a handful of times. And I think for me, the reason, we've had conversations about this, me and him before, and he felt that I was the one that got away too. So it was mutual. Every time we would move on to somebody else and that didn't work out, we would always fall back to each other, always hoping that this next time it would work, but it never would. And it just became that roller coaster where for a while we were just essentially each other's anchors, where we knew that anything bad that happened in life, and in a way it wasn't a toxic thing in a sense, because you knew there's that one person that you can rely on, that if you needed something outside of family, outside of close friends, almost like a last resort even, that you can depend on them. So that's what we were for each other. And then we went through different phases of each other, of life together, separately, different stages of maturity. And yeah, so definitely an experience. And I think I don't want to say most people, but certainly a handful of folks out there, I would say, have that from their first love. Because again, you're figuring out how to navigate through that for the first time. And for us, looking back, we were so young, right? But if you remember back to your first love, and whenever that might be, you have these visions of starting a family, being together forever, I'll love you forever, all this stuff. And so that's the first time that you're really painting that picture, and then to not see it happen, that's,
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really deep and beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I think And I'm curious as to why you would categorize him as the one that got away. Was it because that you feel like if the circumstances allow, and if serendipity or life allows that to happen, you guys could continue? Is that why?
You know, we revisited the topic later as adults, actually, like a couple years ago, when we linked up, not reconnected that way, but just linked up to share a beer. But we talked about how we always felt like we had that connection, but timing is a heck of a thing, and it was that, we both felt that in a different lifetime, in a different space, it would have worked out, but just too many things didn't fall in line, didn't allow for it to happen. But what we did share was a beautiful thing. Like I said, and this sounds silly in hindsight, but when he graduated from high school, he was a year older than me. And then when I graduated from high school and getting ready to go to college, he had asked me to marry him.
Oh gosh.
And
that's even earlier than Linda.
Yeah. So, like I said, as a 32-year-old looking back and thinking of a high school, high schoolers, even at age 18 where you're graduated and you're engaged, we kept it to ourselves because we were very aware of the fact that everyone around us would be like, oh, you're too young, this and that, but it was very real for us. So I think, again, when you get to the point where you envision and talk about a future with someone and then really seeing it far out there and then not reaching that, I think for us, that's why we felt like it was the one that got away. And we tried so many times, tried. And each one of those times, it still didn't work out. So, and again, it's just learning how to navigate through it, navigating through those feelings, many of those feelings being it for the first time. And you're going through so many different stages of just natural growth as a human being, right? And just figuring all that out, it just
and I think like the one that got away definitely deserves more attention than it has, because I think it, like you said, it's a support system outside of your close family and friends, and because you guys have been through all the transformative years together, you guys have this bond, and you guys are essentially best friends to each other. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And like it's almost like elevated to a level of familial love where like you may not necessarily have romantic interest in each other anymore, but you're still willing to be there to support each other and see that person do well in life.
And
hope for the best for them.
And what you said there about being best friends, there were so many times, if I were to just recollect that, where we would go through the separation, and the hard part was, verbatim, one or both of us would say, well, how do we let go of our best friend? Like, how can I let go? How can I let you go? You're my best friend. You've been through so many transformative phases of our lives together. And especially for us, like I said, we were close to each other's families, and we're very family oriented. So it wasn't just losing each other, it was losing each other's families, so there was a whole nother level of like connection and loss. So that was difficult, but like I said, when we linked up a couple years ago, we realized that it's not meant to be. We weren't meant to be, and we came to peace with that. During that time, that was very difficult, just navigating both together and independently how that affected us.
I think that's a lesson on life. That like not all love stories have that romantic ending, and we may love more than one person in life, and it's not an exclusive thing. And love takes many forms, and it could be elevated to a level of familial love as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And